The sky was gray. Or at least that's how Kai remembered it. One moment, he had been standing on the sidewalk outside the station, rain slipping down his cheeks like cold fingers. A little girl had run into the street, chasing her toy. Then a sudden crack, a yell, a sound like metal groaning overhead. The next moment there was nothing. No pain. No darkness. Just silence. And now. He opened his eyes to sunlight and the sound of wind whispering through trees. Where am I? Kai sat up slowly. Grass brushed against his fingers, soft, almost feathery. Above him, a sky of deep blue stretched endlessly, with clouds drifting like pulled cotton. He was lying beneath a wide tree with golden leaves that rustled faintly in the breeze. It felt peaceful. Too peaceful. Was this the afterlife? He moved his fingers, flexed his arms. Everything felt normal. But his school uniform was gone, replaced with a plain white tunic and gray pants that rustled when he stood up. A small satchel rested beside him, like it had always been his. "This isn't Tokyo," he muttered. "And I'm not dead?" Something shimmered beside his shoulder. Kai froze. A tiny winged object hovered just above his head, no larger than his palm. It looked like a pocket watch, but with tiny silver wings and glowing blue eyes at the center of its face. The second hand ticked backward. "Oh good," it said, voice high and ringing like a bell. "You're not screaming. That's a fine start." Kai stared. "Wah?" "I'm Tick," it continued, bobbing up and down. "Spirit of time. Newly contracted to you, Kai of Earth. Welcome to the blue planet. Don't worry, you've only slightly messed up the world's rhythm." "I've what?" Tick spun in the air. "Joking. Mostly. Come, we've got a town to visit. Can't have you lying around like a stunned deer forever." I don't understand. Why me?" Tick paused. "That's a long story. Short version. You saved someone, died doing it, and got noticed by something higher. So now you've got a second chance. But not as a hero. Not as a chosen one. Just you and me." Kai didn't move. His heart thudded softly in his chest. A second chance. Not glory. Not revenge. Not power. Just life. Tick tilted slightly. "Still with me?" Kai exhaled. "Yeah, I think so." "Good," the spirit chimed. "Then let's walk. Stillvale is just down that hill. You'll like it. Quiet. Soft. And time moves a little differently there." Kai glanced down the slope. Between the trees he could see a village nestled in a valley, cobblestone paths, little houses with blue roofs, smoke curling gently from chimneys. Children ran between carts. A bell tower chimed softly in the distance. A slow town. A quiet one. It felt like the opposite of everything his old life had been. As Kai began walking, his legs still shaky, Tick floated beside him in silence. The breeze carried the scent of bread and river water. A distant laugh echoed from the town below. He didn't know what this place was. He didn't understand why he was here. But for the first time in a long time he wasn't running late. He wasn't rushing to catch a train, to cram for a test, to fake a smile at classmates he barely knew. Here time didn't chase him. Here time walked beside him. And it had wings. The village of Stillvale welcomed Kai without fanfare. No nobles. No gods. Just an old man with a warm smile. Mayor Elric was waiting by the village gate, leaning on a walking stick made of silverwood. His white beard curled slightly at the tips, and his eyes sparkled with kindness. "Ah," he said as if recognizing Kai instantly. "You've arrived. The spirit told us to expect someone with quiet steps." Kai blinked. "You know about Tick?" "Most folks here have bonds with spirits," Elric chuckled. "Mine's with a candle sprite, helps me read in the dark. Come. We'll find you a place to rest." Tick made a please chime sound. "Told you. Friendly place." They walked through cobbled streets lined with mossy walls and hanging lanterns that swayed in the breeze. Children chased each other with wooden swords and shopkeepers called out gentle greetings. It didn't feel real. And yet, it didn't feel fake either. A cat brushed against Kai's leg as they passed the bakery. A blacksmith hammered softly on a blade that shimmered with runes. And from somewhere deeper in town, music drifted on the wind, a soft, stringed melody like a lullaby. Mayor Elric led Kai to a small guest house on the edge of town. It wasn't much. Just a bed, a table, and a window facing the fields. But the sheets smelled clean and the floor was warm underfoot. "You'll stay here for now," the mayor said gently. "No rent. No chores. Just rest. When you're ready, we'll see what place the world has for you." Kai didn't know what to say. He bowed slightly. "Thank you. Sleep well, boy." The mayor's eyes twinkled. Time's on your side after all. That night, Kai lay in bed watching moonlight spill across the wooden floor. Tick rested on the windowsill, ticking faintly. Was this a mistake? Kai whispered. No, Tick replied softly. But it wasn't fate either. You stepped forward when others froze. That choice echoed. Kai turned to the ceiling. I didn't feel brave. I just moved. Tick hovered to his side. Then maybe that's what real courage is. Silence settled between them. Outside, wind rustled the leaves. A fox barked in the distance. Somewhere, a bell tower chimed once. Kai closed his eyes. He had no sword. No grand destiny. Just a strange little spirit, a quiet town, and a name he barely remembered. But for now, that was enough. The morning mist drifted like thin silk over the hills. Kai stepped out of the guest house, pulling the door closed behind him with a soft click. The wood still creaked from age, but everything else about the little home was calm. A woven mat, a flower pot on the windowsill, a broom resting against the wall, it felt lived in but not by him. He still didn't know if he belonged here. Tick hovered quietly beside him, wings ticking in soft rhythms. The spirit didn't speak. Neither did Kai. Sometimes silence said enough. The town of Stillvale looked different in the daylight. The buildings were short and round-roofed, made of pale stone and blue clay tiles. Ivy climbed the corners of windows. Laundry lines stretched lazily between houses, and sunflowers grew wild along the fence posts. There were no car horns. No phones buzzing. No voices shouting. Just life moving one careful step at a time. As Kai wandered, villagers passed by with nods and small smiles. They didn't question him. Didn't crowd him with curious words. They accepted him with the same quiet rhythm that seemed to guide everything else here. Feels weird, doesn't it? Tick said, finally breaking the stillness. Being somewhere you're not needed, but not rejected either. Kai nodded slightly. Yeah, it's like I'm floating. Tick hummed. Not a bad way to start, honestly. Most heroes get tossed into war on day one. You get tomatoes and morning fog. Kai chuckled under his breath. I think I prefer this. They followed the winding paths until they reached a circular plaza at the village's center. A stone fountain stood there, shaped like a spiral of hands reaching skyward, with water spilling gently from their fingertips. At the edge of the plaza sat a small wooden stand with a blue canopy. A woman was arranging jars of honey on it, each labeled with elegant script. Next to her, sitting cross-legged and nibbling on a round pastry, was a girl with short brown hair and a bright green scarf. She noticed Kai immediately. Hey, new guy, she called, waving. You're the one who bonded with the time spirit, right? Kai blinked. Yeah. She hopped up, brushing crumbs off her skirt. I'm Lena. This is my mom's stall. She sells the best honey rolls in Stillvale. The woman smiled and waved from behind a stack of jars. Lena grinned. You looked like you didn't know where to go, so now you do. Kai tilted his head. Where is that? She pointed dramatically down one of the cobblestone roads. The riverside. It's the best place to sit and breathe. Come on, I'll show you. Tick spun in a slow circle. She's energetic. Kai followed anyway. The river that ran along the edge of Stillvale was calm and shallow, lined with flat stones and tall reeds. Small bridges crossed it at intervals, and dragonflies danced along the water's surface. Lena plopped down on a smooth rock and pulled out another pastry. So, what's it like having a spirit partner? Mine's Flo, a water sprite. She's a bit shy. Kai sat beside her, hands resting on his knees. I don't know yet. Tick just talks in circles. Tick made an indignant beep. I am the echo of unfolding time. I don't talk in circles. I illustrate spirals. Lena laughed. Yeah, that sounds about right. They watched the water for a while, silence settling between them. Not awkward but thoughtful. My brother used to sit here with me, Lena said softly, brushing her fingers along the river's surface. Before he left to train with the silver blades. Kai glanced at her. Is that a knight order? She nodded. They guard the spirit temples. Only bonded people can join. He said I'd be too soft for it, but Flo and I are stronger than we look. Kai smiled faintly. I believe you. She grinned back, then reached into her scarf and pulled out a small crystal pendant. This lets me use my bond skill, wave touch. It makes a water shield. Want to see? Sure. Lena stood, held the pendant in both hands and whispered something under her breath. A soft ring of water bloomed around her in a shimmering arc, like a bubble reflecting the sky. Kai stared. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't loud. It was beautiful. When the water faded, she sat down again. So, what's yours? Kai hesitated. I haven't tried it yet. Not really. Lena tilted her head. Not even once? I don't even know how, he admitted. Tick floated up beside him. It's simple. Intent, clarity, and focus. Imagine time slowing around you, not stopping, just bending. Let the world breathe slower. Kai looked down at his hands. He didn't feel powerful. He didn't feel like someone who had magic. But he closed his eyes anyway. The memory came easily, the moment the fruit basket fell yesterday. The flash of awareness. The way everything had seemed to wait just for a second. He breathed in. Time, slow down. A faint pulse echoed in his chest. The wind paused. A leaf drifted slower. Then, like a ripple, everything returned to normal. Kai opened his eyes. Lena stared. Whoa. Kai blinked. Did it work? Tick chimed softly. 3 seconds. Well done. Kai smiled for the first time since waking on this strange new world. He didn't have a grand skill. It didn't shoot fire. It didn't stop time. But it felt right, like a thread he could follow. Lena offered him another honey roll. You're gonna fit in here just fine. And for the first time, Kai believed it. That evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the village in gold, Kai sat at his window watching the clouds pass. Tick hovered nearby, wings barely fluttering. This place is slow, Kai whispered. But not empty. No, Tick agreed. Slow isn't the same as still. You're learning the rhythm. Kai turned his eyes to the horizon. I think I needed this. The spirit nodded, ticking faintly. Everyone does, eventually. Somewhere in the town, a bell tower chimed again. Kai closed his eyes. Maybe this world didn't need a hero. Maybe it didn't need saving. But it had space for someone like him. And that, for now, was enough. The sunrise rolled in soft and slow, like warm paint across the sky. Kai stood barefoot in the field behind the guest house, dew soaking through the soles of his pants. His breath hung light in the cool morning air. Tick hovered in front of him, still ticking steadily like it always did, measured, unrushed. All right, Tick said at last. Time to make it official. Kai exhaled, nerves tingling just beneath his skin. Didn't I already bond with you? Nope. That was the awakening. Like shaking hands, Tick replied. This is the contract. The real one. We do it in full or you don't get the second ability. Or the proper connection. Kai raised an eyebrow. Second ability? Tick's eyes sparkled. Let's call it an extra sense. He wasn't sure what that meant, but he nodded anyway. They stood in the quiet meadow just as the sun slipped over the horizon. The town was still asleep. Only the birds and a few sleepy cows witnessed the ceremony. Close your eyes, Tick said. Kai obeyed. Now listen. Not just with your ears, with your memory, with your regrets, with your questions. The world around him slowed. He could hear it, the wind brushing through the grass, the buzz of a single fly, the creak of the trees in the distance. But more than that, he felt something. Something like waiting. Not for him exactly, but for someone. It was like standing in a line you didn't know you were in, and suddenly realizing your name had just been called. A pulse stirred in his chest. Then, softly, he whispered, I accept the bond. I walk with time. Tick's wings flared once, a flash of light warming the air. The world snapped back into rhythm. Kai opened his eyes. Nothing had changed, and yet everything felt different. A soft string pulled gently in the back of his mind. A thread, invisible but firm. It didn't hurt. It wasn't heavy. But he could feel it, like a heartbeat not his own, echoing alongside his. Tick floated gently, glowing a little brighter. It's done, the spirit said. You're now properly bonded to me, the spirit of time. Kai let out a slow breath. So, what's this second ability? Tick circled him once, then stopped in front of his eyes. Time sense. Kai frowned slightly. Like, seeing the future? Tick gave a short, airy chuckle. No, not quite. That's far too loud. What you have is the whisper of future danger. A brush of wind before the fall. A flicker of warning in your chest. It's intuition tuned by the rhythm of time. Kai looked down at his hands. They didn't look stronger. They didn't glow. But he felt different. Like the world wasn't a blur anymore. Like he could almost see when something wasn't right. Later that morning, Kai wandered through Still Vale with that same strange feeling humming quietly inside him. He passed a cart vendor struggling to fix a wheel, a blacksmith teaching a child how to grip a blade, and a quiet artist painting a mural near the bakery. It was all so peaceful. Too peaceful, almost. But then it happened. Kai turned down an alley behind the baker's, chasing the scent of cooling bread, when something in his chest twitched. A flicker, soft and sudden like a skipped heartbeat. He froze. His eyes darted around. Nothing. Just crates and an old ladder propped against a wall. Then with the barest creak, the ladder shifted. Kai lunged forward. Crash. The ladder slammed down where he'd been standing a second ago. Dust puffed into the air. A loose tile tumbled off the roof above. "Whoa," came a voice behind him. Lena jogged over, a flour-dusted cloth over her shoulder. "Did you see that thing coming?" Kai looked at the fallen ladder. "No. I just felt it." Tick buzzed from his shoulder, smug. "Time sense. First activation." Lena blinked. "You've got a danger instinct? That's awesome." She looked impressed. "I can barely sense rain." Kai laughed lightly. "It's not perfect. Just a flicker. But still," Lena said. "You might not be flashy, but you're tuned. That's rare." He hadn't thought about that. Rare. Back home he was always the unnoticed one, the quiet one, the one who blended in. But here people saw him. Later that day Kai returned to the fountain in the plaza. He sat with his legs tucked under him, watching the hands of the spiral statue drip with water, each one catching the light like glass. He focused. Not to cast magic. Not to use his skill. Just to listen. He was beginning to notice it, the slow beat of Stillvale's heart. The quiet rhythm of footsteps, laughter, leaves rustling. And underneath it all, time flowing like a stream. Not rushing. Not screaming. Just moving. Tick hovered beside him, silent for once. Kai spoke without turning. "Was I meant to do something in this world?" The spirit took a moment before answering. "No one's meant to. That's the trick. Time doesn't give you meaning. You give it to yourself." Kai looked at the sky. Clouds drifted like slow boats overhead. He didn't want to be a hero. He didn't want to fight a war. He just wanted to matter. Not in the way others expected. Just in a way that felt real. And for the first time the thought didn't feel selfish. It felt human. That evening, Kai walked home as the lanterns flickered on one by one. Stillvale glowed in soft amber light. He passed by Lena's house. She waved from the window. He passed by Ray, the sword student, who nodded once without words. He passed by the old merchant from the day before, the one he'd saved the fruit basket for. The man smiled gently but said nothing. And Kai smiled back. Not because he was special, but because he was here. The river always made a sound like a song trying not to be heard. That's what Lena had said anyway. Kai sat cross-legged on a flat rock near the water, arms resting on his knees. The sunlight was mellow today, filtered through clouds like sheer fabric. The river wound through Stillvale like a silver thread, glimmering with every ripple. Lena sat a few steps away barefoot, her feet dipping into the cold current. Her scarf was off for once, folded neatly in her lap. "You get used to the chill after a while," she said softly. "I used to think it bit me on purpose. But now I think, it's just reminding me I'm alive." Kai didn't respond right away. He was still learning that Lena had many moods. Most of the time, she laughed easily and filled every silence. But sometimes, like now, she let her words fall slowly, like leaves drifting on still water. "I like it here," he said finally. She nodded. "Me too. This place has a quiet that feels like it knows your name." There was a breeze then, just enough to rustle the tall grass and stir the reeds. Lena reached into the pocket of her tunic and pulled out a small round stone. It was painted blue with a little white swirl in the center. She rolled it between her fingers. "My brother gave me this," she said. "Before he left." Kai turned slightly to look at her. "He was always strong," she continued, "but he didn't start that way. He used to fall over trying to hold a sword that was too big. I laughed so hard one time I fell off the fence." A small smile crossed her face. "He gave me this the night before he joined the Silver Blades. Said it was lucky. Said I'd need it more than he did." "Do you?" Kai asked. She looked at the stone in her hand for a long moment, then smiled again, quieter this time. "Not really. But I carry it anyway." Kai nodded. There were no loud proclamations. No promises. Just presence. Just two people sitting by the river listening to its quiet song. Later Lena showed him how to skip stones. "You're overthinking it," she said, tossing a pebble that bounced 4 times across the surface. "It's all about rhythm." Kai narrowed his eyes. "You mean like time?" Tick let out a smug chime from his shoulder. Finally, a useful metaphor. Kai flicked his wrist and sent his stone flying. It sank with a heavy plop on the first bounce. Lena burst out laughing. That was so bad. He chuckled. I didn't say I was good. She picked up another stone and offered it to him. Try again. This one's lucky. Kai took it. Because it's round and flat or because you say so? Yes, she grinned. He threw it. Plip, plip, plip. 3 skips. He turned to look at her. She smiled without words. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting the river in orange and gold, they sat together quietly again. Do you ever miss where you came from? Lena asked. Kai hesitated. Sometimes, he admitted. But not in the way I thought I would. I don't miss the noise. Or the pace. Or feeling like I was always late for something. What do you miss? He thought for a while. Warm vending cans in winter. The smell of bookstores. Ramen shops that are too small to sit down in. Lena tilted her head. Sounds lonely. Kai gave a sad little smile. It was. But it was also mine. She looked at him thoughtfully. Then maybe now, this can be yours too. He turned toward the river again, letting the soft words settle. He hadn't realized how much of himself he'd left behind until now. And he hadn't realized how much of himself he was beginning to find again. Here, in this strange world where time moved gently, and rivers hummed soft songs beneath tall grass. When they returned to the plaza that evening, the lanterns were just beginning to flicker on. Lena paused at the edge of the square. Hey Kai. He turned. She held out the painted stone. I want you to hold on to it for a while. Kai blinked. But it's from your brother. She nodded. Yeah. But it helped me feel brave when I needed to. And you? I think you're going to need that more than me now. He stared at the little blue swirl. Then slowly he reached out and took it. It felt warm. Like a promise. Like a step forward. Thank you, he said. She just smiled, gave a casual wave and jogged off toward her home. That night, Kai sat at his window, the stone resting on the table beside him. Tick floated in a lazy circle, wings softly clicking. She trusts you, the spirit said. Kai looked at the sky. I don't know why. You don't have to. Just don't waste it. He nodded slowly. And as the moon rose over Stillvale, Kai curled under the blankets with the river's quiet song still echoing in his thoughts. The morning mist had barely begun to rise when Kai heard the knock. Knock, knock, knock. Sharp, cheerful, and impatient. He blinked sleepily at the ceiling, still tangled in blankets. The birds outside had only just started their morning chatter. Up, sleepy time, wizard, came Lena's voice through the door. Kai groaned softly and rolled over. It's not even light out. Exactly. Spirit training starts before breakfast if you want to impress your bond. He opened the door a moment later, hair a mess and eyes half closed. Lena stood there, arms crossed, already dressed and wide awake. Her scarf fluttered lightly in the breeze. You really are a time spirit user, she teased. You look like you stopped time just to get more sleep. Just 5 more minutes, Kai muttered. Nope. Let's go. She grabbed his sleeve and pulled him out the door before he could protest. They walked through dew-soaked grass toward the eastern ridge, where tall trees formed a natural training ground. Kai had passed by the grove a few times before but never really entered. It felt like stepping into another room in the same dream, quiet, green and always awake before him. Lena tossed him a small satchel as they reached a clearing. Inside, a water bottle, some dried fruit and a handwritten note that read, Lesson 1, Spirits like rhythm. You have to move with them, not just beside them. He raised an eyebrow. Did Tick write this? Nope, Lena said proudly. That one's from me. Kai sat down on a mossy stump and looked around. So, what exactly is spirit training? Bond arts aren't just spells, she explained, stretching her arms. They're connections. You don't cast your ability. You channel it through the bond. If your rhythm is off, the art weakens, or fizzles completely. Kai blinked. Wait. So all this time I could have messed up just by being out of sync. Lena nodded. Yep. Spirits can be picky. Tick didn't mention that. Tick spun once in the air. I assumed you'd pick it up naturally. Like blinking. Kai narrowed his eyes. I don't blink in perfect harmony with time. Tick shrugged, or at least made a ticking sound that implied a shrug. Lena giggled. Okay. Let's start easy. Can you show me your slow step again? Kai stood and took a steady breath. He focused on the rhythm he'd started to sense earlier in the week. The soft beat of footsteps, wind through trees, the flow of his own breath. Slow down. Let the moment stretch. The world eased back just slightly. The birds seemed to move a touch slower. A falling leaf hovered in the air like it couldn't decide when to land. Lena's eyes widened. You did it. Kai exhaled slowly, holding the bond as long as he could. Then snap. It was gone. 3 seconds, he muttered. Maybe 4. That's really good for a beginner, Lena said, nodding in approval. Now try walking during it. Kai tried. It felt like walking through shallow water. Every step met gentle resistance, not painful, just strange. His legs moved, but his senses lagged slightly behind them. Halfway through his second step, the bond snapped again. Okay, that felt weird, he muttered. Yeah, movement makes it harder, Lena agreed. Your body wants to move forward. Time wants to hold you still. You have to find the edge where both can meet. She crouched beside him and drew a line in the dirt. Stand here. I'll throw this pebble. Your goal is to catch it after it leaves my hand, but before it hits the line. Kai nodded. She tossed. He activated slow step, just as the pebble left her fingers. Everything bent, slowed. The pebble spun slowly through the air, suspended like it was caught in syrup. He lunged forward and snatched it from midair. Time snapped back. Lena let out a cheer. Yes, that was awesome. Kai was breathless. That was harder than it looked. You bent timing around motion, Lena said, eyes bright. That's something most people train for weeks. Kai sat down on the grass, heart still racing. Tick hovered above him, ticking slowly. Your pace is improving. You're listening. Kai nodded. I think I'm starting to feel it. Not just think about it. That's the key, Lena said gently. Most people think bond arts are about control. But it's more like dancing with your spirit, listening to its rhythm, moving together. She lay back in the grass, arms folded behind her head. Kai followed her lead, watching the branches sway above them. You really love this, don't you? He asked quietly. Lena smiled up at the sky. Yeah, I do. Even if I'm not strong. Even if I never become a guardian or make my spirit proud in some flashy way. I like feeling connected to something older than me. Kai was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, do you think spirits ever get lonely? Lena blinked, then looked over at him. That's a sad question. Yeah, I guess it is. Tick floated down to hover above them both. We do get lonely, the spirit said. Time isn't something people walk beside for long. Most fear it. Some run from it. Some try to own it. But very few just sit with it. Kai looked up at the drifting clouds. I'll stay, he said softly. Good, Tick replied. Then I will too. They trained until late afternoon, switching between walking drills and sensing exercises. Lena showed Kai how to breathe in sync with his spirit's pulse. Tick taught her how to form a ripple field using water pressure, just for fun. They ended the day tired, covered in dirt and leaves, and quietly smiling. As they walked back to town, Lena glanced sideways at him. You're not what I expected when I heard someone bonded with time, she said. Kai raised an eyebrow. What did you expect? Someone old? Or mysterious? Maybe wearing robes and talking backwards? He laughed. Sorry to disappoint. Don't be, she replied. You're not flashy, but you care. That's rare. He didn't answer, but her words stayed with him long after the sun set behind the hills. That evening, Kai sat at his window again, the painted stone resting in his hand. He felt tired, but it was a good kind of tired, the kind that meant you'd given something of yourself to the day. Tick floated quietly nearby, ticking faintly like a lullaby. I'm not strong, Kai whispered. No, Tick said. But you're steady. And in the rhythm of time, that matters more. Outside the wind picked up. Leaves whispered across the rooftop. And somewhere in the darkness, a river hummed its quiet song. Stillvale had a rhythm. Kai was beginning to notice it, not just in the wind or the way the river curved around the town, but in the people. The baker always opened his shutters at the same time each morning. The candle shop owner hummed the same tune every evening. Even the stray cats seemed to follow invisible routes. But there was one person whose rhythm didn't match. He saw him every morning in the training square behind the elders' hall, a figure in gray, moving through sword drills before the sun had fully risen. While others walked with gentle steps, this boy moved like water poured into steel. Kai first noticed him while heading toward the bakery just after dawn. Lena had mentioned a sword apprentice before, someone from Stonegrove who didn't talk much. That had been an understatement. Ray didn't talk at all. He practiced alone, always alone. And every move was precise. Kai couldn't help but stop and watch. Ray moved like a metronome disguised as a blade, slow, then fast, then still. His stance never wavered. His feet whispered across the stone floor, and his wooden sword drew clean arcs through the air. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't brutal. but everything about him spoke of control. Tick hovered beside Kai's shoulder. That one dances to his own time. He's amazing, Kai whispered. Ray paused mid-motion. For a heartbeat, their eyes met. Kai flinched. Then Ray turned back to his drills like nothing had happened. Later that day, Kai found himself near the training square again. This time by accident, or so he told himself. He lingered at the edge, not close enough to interrupt, but too curious to walk away. Ray finished his sequence, sheathed his wooden practice sword into a cloth band on his back, and began wiping down the bench where he sat between sessions. Kai hesitated, then stepped forward. Hey, he said awkwardly. That was really clean. Your form. Ray glanced at him. Not coldly. Just cautiously. Thanks, came the reply low and clipped. I'm Kai, he offered. I'm kind of new here. Still learning the ropes. Ray nodded. I know. A long pause stretched between them like a taut string. I'm bonded with the spirit of time, Kai said, unsure why he was still talking. Ray looked at him for a moment, then said, That sounds hard. Kai blinked. Most people say it sounds cool. Ray's voice was quiet. Cool things are usually heavy to carry. That silenced him. Then Ray stood and tilted his head slightly. Show me. Kai blinked again. What? Your skill, Ray said. I want to see it. Now. Okay. Kai stepped back and centered himself. He took a deep breath, found the pulse, the invisible metronome he was learning to trust, and activated slow step. Time bent. The edges of Ray's shape blurred and sound softened. Kai walked forward, then released the ability. The world snapped back to full speed. Ray blinked. Not bad. Kai rubbed the back of his neck. Still clunky. I can barely hold it for a few seconds. Timing's good, Ray said. But your footing's wrong. Your steps drift when the pulse slows. What? Ray stepped forward and mimicked Kai's walk. Your knees lock. You lead too much with your right. In a slowed field, you need to center, let your weight carry instead of forcing it. Kai stared. How do you know that? I've trained in 6 styles, Ray said. Some are designed for low-gravity duels. Some simulate magical time disruption. It's all footwork. Kai couldn't help but smile. So you're like, an expert? No, Ray replied flatly. Just focused. Another pause. Kai was beginning to realize that Ray didn't speak much, but when he did, it was always something meant. Would you mind showing me? Kai asked. Ray hesitated, then nodded. They trained for over an hour in silence. Ray demonstrated slow, deliberate steps across the stone, and Kai followed. He corrected Kai's posture with short, direct taps to his shoulder or knee. No wasted words. No frustration. Just quiet repetition. Kai was sweating by the end, his legs trembling from the unfamiliar control. But something about it felt good. Like drawing a line you didn't know you could make straight. Ray stepped back at last and offered a small nod. Better. Kai wiped his forehead. Thanks. I didn't think sword drills would help me not swing a sword. Ray sat down, resting his hands on his knees. Sword work is movement. You don't need a blade to use what it teaches. Kai sat too. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable now. Felt earned. Tick floated lazily between them. You two are a fascinating rhythm. Kai glanced at Ray. Have you bonded with a spirit? Ray nodded. Stone skin. Temporary defense. Oh, that's actually pretty cool. It's simple, Ray said, but solid. There was a weight to that word. Solid. Like something you could rely on. Kai thought about that for a while. That evening, as the training square emptied and the lamps began to glow gold in their glass casings, Kai stood to leave. Thanks again, he said. You didn't have to help me. Ray didn't smile, but his voice softened. You asked. That matters. Kai walked away with sore legs and quiet thoughts. Ray didn't say much, but everything he did say stayed with you. That night, Kai sat again at his little wooden table, watching the candle flicker beside Tick. Ray's different, he said quietly. Yes, Tick agreed. He carries weight without dragging it. Kai rested his head on his arms. I think I want to learn how to do that. The spirit ticked softly, almost like a heartbeat. Then walk beside him, it whispered, and let his rhythm shape yours. Outside, the moon watched from behind a pale cloud, and the town exhaled in sleep. The weather changed overnight. Rain fell softly over Stillvale, not in sheets but in a steady hush, like the town itself had decided to whisper instead of speak. Kai sat beneath the guest house awning, knees pulled to his chest, watching the drops trace slow, glistening paths down the railing. Tick hovered beside him, wings folded like a sleepy butterfly. Still no thunder, Tick murmured. Kai glanced over. Does thunder mean something here? No. Just dramatic effect, the spirit replied. Kai gave a soft laugh. You're weird. I'm a time spirit. I've seen weird. The rain kept falling. That morning, Mayor Elric had asked Kai to help the herbalist carry supplies from the far end of the village. It wasn't urgent. Stillvale rarely had anything urgent, but he'd agreed. He liked the herbalist shop. It always smelled like mint and old paper. The crates were heavier than he expected, stacked with wrapped herbs, tiny jars, and dried fruit Kai couldn't name. As he carried them toward the apothecary district, he noticed something strange. The air shifted. Not the rain. Not the wind. Something else. A pressure, not on his skin but behind his eyes. His heartbeat skipped. His foot faltered mid-step. And then, clatter. A small wooden sign dropped from above, landing hard beside him with a sharp crack. He froze. He had taken that last step. Kai stared at the broken board, its edges sharp and splintered. Rain dripped from where it had been loosely nailed to the eaves above. Tick floated lower, eye narrowing. That was your time sense. Kai slowly set the crate down and exhaled. It felt like, I knew. Just before it happened. Exactly, Tick said. It's not a prediction. It's not knowledge. It's resonance. A flicker when a future leans too far in one direction. Kai touched his chest. It wasn't painful, but it shook something inside him. Like a warning whispered straight into his bones. Does this happen often? He asked. Only when danger has momentum, Tick replied. Which means something set it in motion. Kai looked up at the broken eaves. It could have been nothing. Just an old nail giving out in the rain. But he couldn't shake the feeling that something had nudged it. Not by hand. By chance. Too perfect to be coincidence. Too quiet to be seen. Later that day he returned to the plaza to find Lena crouched beneath a shop awning, stacking crates of preserves for the merchant's wife. You okay? She asked, brushing rain from her scarf. Kai hesitated, then nodded. Yeah. Just, weird morning. Lena tilted her head. You look like you felt something. Kai crouched beside her. I think my other skill finally activated. Time sense. She blinked. Seriously? What was it like? Like, walking into a room and knowing something's wrong before you hear it, he said. Like a drop of silence where there shouldn't be one. That sounds terrifying. Kai thought for a moment. Not terrifying. Just sharp. Lena handed him a jar. Well, maybe that's a good thing. This world's quiet but not always kind. Maybe you're supposed to feel the cracks. Kai looked at her. There was again. That quiet wisdom hiding behind her laughter. He wondered how many cracks she'd felt herself. As evening approached, the rain eased into mist. The sky turned a pale silver and lanterns lit early, their flames dancing gently against the glass. Kai found himself walking again, no destination, just steps following rhythm. Stillvale had grown familiar. But now, something beneath that familiarity felt off balance. Not wrong. Just tilted. He passed the blacksmith's shop. Closed early. The bakery, lights out even though the shelves weren't empty. He turned the corner near the old mural, half-faded angels painted on stone, and paused. A figure stood there. Hooded. Motionless. At the far end of the path. Kai blinked. The air twitched. Then gone. The figure had vanished. No footsteps. No sound. Just gone. His heart pounded. Time sense hadn't flared. Not fully. But something inside him whispered. Watch. He took one step forward. Then another. The alley was empty. But the mural, the one he'd passed a dozen times, now had a new crack running down its center. Fresh. Clean. Like something had split the stone without a hammer. Kai backed away slowly. He didn't understand it. But Stillvale's rhythm had just missed a beat. That night, Kai sat by the window, arms folded on the sill. The mist clung to the rooftops like a forgotten memory. Tick floated beside him, unusually quiet. That figure, Kai said softly. It didn't belong. No, Tick agreed. What was it? The spirit didn't answer for a long time. Then, I don't know. Kai turned his head. You've seen everything, haven't you? Tick's wings folded in close. Everything we were meant to see. Silence stretched. And in that silence, Kai realized something. Time wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a shield. It was a window. Sometimes open, sometimes cracked, sometimes dark. And right now, something was watching through the other side. Stillvale didn't ask for heroes. It asked for hands. Hands to carry. Hands to sweep. Hands to hold something for just a moment, until the wind passed and the task was done. Kai was beginning to understand that. The morning came soft and cold, with a light breeze tugging at the curtains of his window. The rain had cleared but left behind a damp hush that clung to the rooftops. Kai rose early. Not out of habit, but because he wanted to. He dressed, strapped his satchel over one shoulder, and stepped outside as the first light painted the cobblestones gold. Tick floated beside him without a word. They didn't need to speak this morning. Kai had a goal. Help. Not save. Not solve. Just help. The baker was first. Her delivery boy had twisted his ankle the night before, and the morning baskets were still waiting to be brought down to the riverside tea shop. Kai didn't hesitate. "I've got time," he said. She smiled and handed him the first basket. It was warm in his arms, smelling of soft bread and honey. "Bless you, dear," she said. "The stairs to the tea house can be cruel." He nodded. "I'll be careful." It was a small thing. One errand. But it felt right. Next was the bridge. One of the town's old rope crossings had frayed during the storm. It wasn't dangerous, not yet, but Lena's uncle had been fretting over it all morning. Kai offered to hold the support ropes while he rewound them. Rain still dripped from the wood. It soaked through Kai's sleeves. His fingers ached with the effort. But when they finished, the uncle clapped his shoulder with a hearty grin. "You've got good balance," he said. "Maybe not strong yet, but steady." Kai smiled. "Still working on strong." The man laughed. "Aren't we all?" By midday, Kai had patched a cracked lantern, fetched ink for the scribe, calmed a goat that had wandered into someone's herb garden, and helped 3 kids untangle a kite from a roof beam. None of it was magic. None of it required a bond. But as the sun climbed higher, people began to wave as he passed. Just a little wave. Just a nod. But Stillvale was beginning to see him. Lena found him sitting by the river just past noon, shoes off, toes dangling in the cold stream. His tunic was damp, his arms sore, and he was grinning faintly to himself. She plopped down beside him. "You look like you've been busy." "I have," he said. She offered him half a rice cake from her lunch wrap. "Stillvale's secret hero, huh?" Kai laughed under his breath. "I'm not a hero. I just didn't want to sit still today." Lena looked out over the water, then leaned back on her elbows. "Good," she said. "Stillvale doesn't need statues. Just people who notice when something's crooked." Kai glanced sideways. "That a quote?" "Something my mom used to say," Lena replied. "Heroes show up when the sky breaks. But kind people show up before it ever falls." Kai went quiet. Then he said, "The sky almost broke yesterday." Lena turned. "You mean the ladder thing?" Kai nodded. "And the figure. The mural. There was something wrong." Her face darkened slightly. "I saw the crack. That's never been there." "You think someone did it?" he asked. "I don't know," she said. But it felt like a warning. Kai looked down at the water. It flowed so gently as if it couldn't imagine being angry. But rivers could flood. Even this one. That evening, as the sky burned orange and pink, Kai wandered back toward the plaza and found Ray. The sword student was leaning against a post, watching children race wooden boats down the gutter streams. "You've been active," Ray said without looking at him. Kai shrugged. "Felt like the right thing to do." Ray nodded. "It's harder than it looks." "What is?" "Helping," Ray said. Without asking for anything back. Kai glanced at him. "You do it all the time." "I train," Ray corrected. "Training is personal. Helping is heavier." Kai tilted his head. "But you showed me how to walk better." "You didn't have to." Ray's mouth twitched slightly, almost a smile. "Guess I forgot to charge you," he said. Kai chuckled. They stood together quietly as the sun dipped below the treetops. Ray turned to him at last. "If you ever need to practice, I'm around." Kai looked at him and nodded. "Thanks." It wasn't flashy. It wasn't deep. But it was trust. And that was enough. Later, as the lanterns lit across town and laughter rose from the inns, Kai wandered home alone. Tick hovered beside him, quiet until the road curved toward the hill. "You're starting to hum," it said. Kai blinked. "What?" "Your rhythm," the spirit replied. "You're no longer just reacting to the world. You're part of its pattern now." Kai thought about that. The people. The chores. The smiles. "I think I like being quiet," he said. "Then be quietly steady," Tick replied. "Not all clocks need to chime." That night, Kai sat by the window with the painted stone in his hand. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Outside, Stillvale breathed in sleep. And for the first time since arriving on the blue planet, Kai didn't feel like he was waiting for something. He felt like he was living. The days were growing shorter. Kai hadn't noticed it until this morning, when the dawn light reached his window just a little later than before. The warm edge of summer was starting to dull into something gentler, something slower. Autumn was coming. And with it, a feeling Kai couldn't name. He stood at the river's edge, skipping stones with Lena again. But this time, the stones didn't skip quite as far. The water moved just a little too slowly. And the wind, which usually tugged gently at the reeds, stood still. Even Lena was quiet. "I had a weird dream," she said suddenly, breaking the silence. Kai glanced at her. "What kind?" She rubbed her arms, frowning. "The kind that feels heavy. Like it's holding onto your chest when you wake up." He didn't press. She didn't offer more. But the air felt different. Just slightly off balance. Like a song drifting out of key. That afternoon, Mayor Elric asked Kai to help deliver notices to the outlying farms. "Just routine," he said. "A reminder about the seasonal festival 2 weeks away." Kai was glad for the walk. The fresh air, the crunch of gravel beneath his boots, the quiet rhythm of being useful. These were all things that usually settled his thoughts. But the moment he crossed into the northern fields, his chest tightened. Time sense. It brushed his ribs like cold fingers, then vanished. Kai stopped walking. Tick floated silently beside him. "I felt it," Kai said. "I did too," Tick replied. "But it's further out. Slippery." Kai looked across the rolling hills. Just wind, wheat, and the long wooden fences of Stillvale's borders. But something had touched the thread of time. Something not part of the rhythm. The sun began to dip lower as he finished the deliveries and turned back toward town. The shadows grew longer. The breeze picked up, but the wind didn't feel playful anymore. Stillvale's western ridge cast a long curve of darkness across the far road. And in that shadow, just for a second, Kai saw something move. He stopped. A figure. Standing just at the edge of the trees. Cloaked. Still. Watching. Kai's breath caught. There. The time sense twitched again. The figure turned and vanished behind a tree. Kai ran forward, feet slamming the gravel path. His heart pounded, breath short. But when he reached the spot, nothing. No prints. No sound. No one. Just an old tree with curling roots and a fresh cut in its bark. Thin. Clean. Almost like a blade had skimmed it. Kai stepped back slowly. Tick hovered closer. "It's the same presence. From the mural." Kai nodded. "Why here? Why show themselves and then vanish?" Tick's voice dropped. "Because it wanted to be seen. But only once. Enough to set the rhythm off balance." Kai turned back toward town, eyes still on the trees. He didn't feel watched anymore. And that was worse. That night he told Lena and Ray everything. They met in the back room of the library, a small space lined with scrolls and dried flowers. Mayor Elric was out, and the only light came from a flickering lantern on the table. Lena leaned forward, brows furrowed. "You're sure it wasn't a trick of the light?" Kai nodded. "Time sense doesn't trigger for shadows. It triggered for intent. Someone meant to be seen." Ray crossed his arms, voice even. "That tree scar. Could be a sword mark. Or a spirit ability," Lena added. Silence settled between them. Then Ray asked, "Why now?" Kai thought about it. Tick floated quietly above them. "Because we're beginning to move," the spirit said. "You've started to shape time around you. That draws attention. Some good. Some not." Lena frowned. "You think this shadow was watching Kai?" "Not just watching," Tick replied. "Measuring." Kai returned to the guest house late. The town was asleep. The lanterns along the river had already dimmed to embers. He didn't light a candle. He just stood by the window watching the fog curl through the empty streets. Tick hovered at his shoulder. "Do you think I caused this?" Kai asked softly. "No," the spirit replied. "But your thread in the tapestry has thickened. You're no longer just a strand." Kai let out a breath. "I didn't ask to be important." "No one does," Tick whispered. "But sometimes time asks you." Kai didn't sleep much that night. He kept hearing footsteps that weren't there. The next morning, Stillvale was warm again. Sunny. Cheerful. Children laughed. Merchants unpacked their carts. The old bell rang 3 times for the baker's special bread. The rhythm had returned. But Kai couldn't unhear the skipped beat. He walked slowly to the fountain, watching everyone. Nothing was wrong. But it felt like something had already happened. And no one knew. No one but him. Stillvale slept beneath stars. Not yet midnight, but most lanterns were out. The town exhaled through chimney smoke and soft wind, wrapped in silence. Kai sat by his window, elbows on the sill, the painted stone resting in his palm. Tick hovered quietly nearby. He hadn't seen the shadow figure again, but he couldn't stop hearing it. The space it left behind. A deep boom rolled across the valley. Dull, distant. Kai sat up straight. Then came the second one, sharper, closer. What? Snapping. Then shouting. Real shouting. Not play. Not laughter. Fear. He was on his feet instantly. The window showed orange, distant, flickering. Fire, Tick whispered. Kai grabbed his tunic, pulled on boots and rushed out the door. The bridge. The one near the river bend, old, patched after the storm, was gone. One side had collapsed into the water. The support ropes were shredded. On the far side, several villagers had been cut off, stranded by the fall. Worse, one of the nearby lantern carts had tipped. Flames licked across the dry grass, inching toward crates of supplies. Ray was already there, sword drawn, cutting loose ropes to stop the fire's spread. Lena stood at the waterline, forming a water shield to slow the advance. Kai ran. No questions. Just movement. Lena, he shouted. What do you need? She pointed. They're trapped, 3 people on the far bank. One's injured. The water's too rough to cross by foot. I'll slow it. She blinked. What? Kai didn't answer. He stepped to the water's edge, found the rhythm, and bent it. Slow step. The rushing current dulled. Time thickened. Kai moved, splashing into the river, boots slipping on wet stone. His body felt heavier, like gravity wanted him to stop. But he focused on each step. Forward. One villager, a boy about Kai's age, clung to a beam, water rising past his waist. 2 more stood behind him, shielding an injured elder. I've got you. Kai shouted, reaching out. The boy looked stunned. How are you moving like that? Kai didn't answer. He pulled him close, guided him carefully across the slowed stream. Lena formed a barrier to deflect the worst of the spray. Ray met them halfway and carried the elder. 1 step at a time they crossed back. Tick tick tick. Time snapped. Kai collapsed to his knees, gasping. He'd pushed it too far. His body trembled. Head pounding. But they were safe. All of them. The fire was out within minutes. Villagers arrived with water pails and wet cloths. The flames never reached the houses. But the bridge was gone. Mayor Elric arrived last, eyes wide with disbelief. Kai, he said breathlessly, you? I'm fine, Kai managed. Ray helped him sit. Lena pressed a cloth to his forehead. You could have drowned, she whispered, angry and grateful all at once. Kai looked at the dark water. I just couldn't watch. No one said anything. But the silence that followed felt full. Like a page that had just been written. Later, after the danger had passed and the town began to settle again, Kai sat alone beneath the tree on the hill. Tick floated nearby, wings faintly glowing. That wasn't just rhythm, the spirit said softly. That was choice. Kai didn't reply. His legs ached. His chest burned. But his heart, it felt steady, like it had finally caught up. You're not a hero, Tick said. Not a savior. But tonight, you moved the hands forward. Kai looked up at the stars. I didn't want to. I know. I just had to. I know that too. He let out a long breath. Stillvale was safe. For now. But it would never be the same. And neither would he. The next morning, the sun rose soft and golden. Kai opened his eyes to the scent of bread and the sound of quiet birdsong. But something inside him had changed. The rhythm hadn't returned to what it was. It had grown. And when he stepped outside, people greeted him not with surprise or celebration, but with recognition. A nod, a smile, a quiet thank you slipped into the rhythm of everyday speech. Stillvale hadn't named him a hero, but they saw him now, and somehow that meant more. Lena found him at the plaza fountain. You okay? She asked. He nodded, a little sore. She nudged his arm with her shoulder. Stillvale's secret hero. Kai smiled faintly. I liked it better when I was just the guy who helped fix crates. You're still that guy, she said. But now you're the guy who saved people too. Ray passed by on his way to training. He paused just long enough to nod. Kai nodded back. No words needed. Tick hovered as they sat by the river that afternoon just like before. Except this time, they weren't alone. Children ran by. Villagers chatted nearby. And the water, once so quiet, now carried echoes of new stories. Tick whispered softly. Time moved faster last night. Kai closed his eyes. Yeah, he said. But I moved with it. The first morning of autumn arrived without ceremony. No wind, no chill. Just a quiet shift in color. The leaves around Stillvale had begun to gold at the edges, like parchment catching sunlight. The fields wore a tired look. The river flowed slower but not sadder. It simply knew the seasons had turned. Kai walked down the main path toward the Old Town Archive, hands in his sleeves, satchel slung over one shoulder. The events at the bridge still lingered in the town's memory, but not loudly. Stillvale didn't shout its stories. It wove them. Now Kai's thread was part of the weave. The archive building looked like it had been forgotten on purpose. Tucked beside the old clock tower, wrapped in ivy and dust, it stood only one story tall but wide, like a sleeping cat curled under a blanket of leaves. A carved sign above the door read, Stillvale Record Hall, no loud voices, no rushing feet. Tick floated beside him, wings fluttering in the cool morning breeze. You sure you want this job? The spirit asked. Quiet place, slow hours, paper cuts. Kai smiled faintly. Sounds perfect. He stepped inside. The scent hit him first. Not of dust, but of memory. Faded ink, cracked leather, and rain-warped pages. Inside, wooden shelves stretched from wall to wall, filled with scrolls, books, and strange objects. Feathers bound in glass, a melted wand, a single red glove pinned behind a frame. Behind the front desk sat a woman with sharp eyes and a soft shawl. You're the time-bond boy, she said without looking up. Kai paused. Yes. You're late. I'm 5 minutes early. She raised one eyebrow. Exactly. 5 minutes. Early. Time spirit. Should have been here on the second. Tick gave a soft tick of protest. The woman grinned. Joking. Mostly. She stood, offered a gloved hand. Name's Mira. Archive keeper. Spirit partner. Whistle. Air type. Kai shook her hand and a small breeze fluttered around his shoulder. I'll show you where you'll be working. Kai was assigned a corner desk near the back, surrounded by boxes of unsorted town records and spirit bond registrations from 20 years ago. Start here, Mira said. Alphabetize. Crosscheck. But mostly read. Learn the rhythm of Stillvale before you assume you know it. Kai nodded, already opening the first box. Mira hesitated. You're the first time bond I've met who wasn't running from something. Kai looked up. Maybe I just don't know what I'm running to yet. She tilted her head. Fair enough. Then she left him in the quiet. For the next few days the archive became a second home. The work was peaceful, sorting, reading, filing. But more than that, it was revealing. Each name, each record told a small story. Marriages, spirit contracts, broken agreements, blessings gone wrong. Kai learned how Stillvale had changed, not through wars or fires but through people. One afternoon he found an old scroll labeled, Bond, Time. Unclaimed. Year 1121. He unrolled it carefully. A child. Age 7. No name listed. A time spirit appeared during a winter fever, offered a bond, then disappeared before the ritual was complete. Tick hovered closer. That's strange. Time spirits don't usually leave? We don't appear without a reason, Tick said. And we don't show ourselves to children unless something's wrong. Kai studied the scrawled notes. The child had survived. But no other spirit appeared again. He frowned. Could this be connected to us? Maybe, Tick whispered. Or maybe this thread just loops backward. That evening, Kai met Lena by the bakery. She was carrying a wrapped basket of ginger rolls and smiling like she knew a secret. What's that look for? Kai asked. Nothing, she said. Just happy you found a job that suits you. He took one of the rolls from the basket. I think I like reading the past. Be careful, Lena warned playfully. Sometimes the past starts reading you. Kai laughed. But the words stayed with him. Later that night, back at the guest house, Kai reopened the scroll about the unclaimed bond. He stared at the name, blank. At the date, 1121. It was only 15 years ago. The child would be his age now. Somewhere in Stillvale, that bond could still be echoing. Tick whispered, not all contracts are forgotten. Some are just delayed. Kai leaned back in his chair, mind spinning. Something about this didn't feel random. Stillvale wasn't just a peaceful town. It was hiding something. Or perhaps, protecting it. And Kai had just stepped into the middle of it. Dust didn't just settle in Stillvale's archive. Remembered? That's what Kai decided after his 5th afternoon sorting records. Every time he brushed his fingers across a shelf, a small cloud rose like a sigh from forgotten pages. And in that dust, sometimes, something stirred. It was late in the day when he found it. He'd been filing contracts from 10 years ago. Simple things. Win bonds. Harvest blessings. A strange entry about someone bonding to a raccoon spirit who specialized in opening jars. Then he noticed it. A box labeled, Private, Unfiled. It had been pushed behind 2 other crates and covered in a thin blue cloth. He shouldn't have noticed it at all, except it was humming. Faintly. Tick floated closer. That box isn't on Myra's list. Kai hesitated, then carefully lifted the cloth. The box was wooden, bound in twine, sealed with wax. On the top, written in faded ink, "Do not destroy. Read if found." Kai looked at Tick. The spirit tilted sideways. That's not ominous at all. He opened it. Inside was a single document wrapped in oil paper. Not a scroll. Not a letter. A page. Torn from something larger. Thick, heavy paper with gold trim on one edge. The ink had faded to brown, but the lines were sharp and deliberate. Kai read the header aloud. Upon the echoing of bonds, the 13th thread. Tick froze midair. Wait, it said. That's spirit theory. Forbidden spirit theory. Kai blinked. You know this. I've heard of it, Tick replied, voice lower. There are only 12 known threads in bond magic. Time, flame, water, stone, wind, light, shadow, growth, sound, sight, will, and memory. 13 implies something else. Something unstable. Kai read on. The page spoke of resonant bonds, contracts that echo across generations. Spirits reborn, ties that defy death, memories leaking through dreams. And near the bottom, scribbled almost carelessly. Subject 42, recovered in Stillvale. Dormant. Watch for time shifts. Kai's pulse quickened. Stillvale. Time shifts. Tick whispered, that can't be coincidence. Kai rewrapped the page and placed it back in the box. Then after a long pause, took it with him. That evening the air turned sharp. A traveler arrived. Unusual for Stillvale. Kai saw her by chance, just a glimpse, at the edge of the square as the bell rang for evening rest. She was young, maybe in her 20s. Her cloak was stitched with golden thread, and she carried no weapon. But everyone stepped aside as she walked. Not out of fear. Not out of respect. Out of instinct. Kai felt the time sense flicker faintly, not danger but displacement. Something about her moved wrong. Not evil. Just off-rhythm. She walked to the mayor's hall, exchanged quiet words with Elric and vanished inside. Tick hovered beside him. She's marked, the spirit said. Marked? By a spirit. Eye level. Not bonded. Just watching her. Kai watched the closed door of the hall. Something inside him turned like a key sliding into place. Stillvale was not just quiet. It was guarded. And now, something had come knocking. The next morning Mira pulled Kai aside. You moved something, she said flatly. He hesitated. She narrowed her eyes. The private, unfiled box. Yes. She exhaled. You found the 13th page. He nodded slowly. What is it? A theory, she said. A dangerous one. About bonds that echo backward. About contracts that should have ended, but didn't. Kai's mouth was dry. Why was it hidden? Because Stillvale doesn't like remembering, Mira said quietly. But time remembers everything. She handed him a key. Basement. Locked cabinet. File what you took. And be careful. Some pages aren't written with ink. Kai held the key in his palm, feeling the cool metal press against his skin. Something old was waiting in the dark below. And it knew he was coming. That night, as fog settled over Stillvale again, Kai stood at the top of the archive stairs, holding a lantern in one hand and the key in the other. Tick floated silently beside him. You don't have to do this now, the spirit said. Kai didn't move. If the 13th thread is real, he whispered, and it echoes through time, then maybe I was always meant to find it. Tick didn't argue. It just ticked once. Soft. And they descended together. Into the dark. The key was cold in his palm. Even as Kai descended the steps into the archive's basement, the metal seemed to leach warmth from his skin. The lantern in his other hand cast flickering shapes against the stone walls, shadows that stretched longer than they should have. Tick floated just ahead, wings dim but steady, casting a soft clockwork glow in the narrow stairwell. Neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't oppressive. It was expectant. The basement smelled different from the rest of the archive. Not dusty. Not moldy. Just still. The kind of stillness that hadn't been disturbed in a very long time. Rows of old wooden shelves lined the far wall, covered in cloths and sealed boxes. A large desk sat in the center, covered in unlit candles. And at the very back, half hidden behind an old divider, stood a single cabinet, black metal, bolted into the stone. Kai approached it. The key fit easily into the lock. Click. The door creaked open. Inside were only 3 objects. A bundle of yellowed pages, bound by red twine. A glass jar containing something dark and cloudy. And a small silver disc engraved with unfamiliar runes. Tick floated closer. "That's spirit-scribed metal," it whispered. "I haven't seen one since." "Since when?" Kai asked. Tick didn't answer. Kai reached for the bundle first. The red twine unraveled easily, and the pages fanned out in his hands. Each one bore a different header, written in the same old script as the page from the box upstairs. On echoed bonds and incomplete threads. Memory transfer between contracts. Spirit rebirth, a pattern denied. Time anomalies, notes from Stillvale, case 42. That number again. Kai sat down on the stone floor and read. The words were dense, looping, theoretical, but something inside him understood. Not with his mind but with something older. A sense beneath sense. A bond that does not end can be mistaken for silence. Time spirits may sleep within living hosts, waiting for alignment. Case 42 shows signs of rhythm displacement, memory drift, and echo recognition. Kai lowered the page, heart pounding. "Am I case 42? He whispered. Tick remained silent for a long time. Then softly, "You might be." Kai stood. He picked up the silver disc. It was cool to the touch but pulsed once beneath his fingertips, like a heartbeat out of sync. A faint hum filled the air. Then, without warning, a vision. He stood on a hill overlooking Stillvale, but it was not the Stillvale he knew. No lanterns. No river. The land was cracked, burned, and overgrown. The sky was a strange pale gray, the sun weak and unfocused. A clock tower lay shattered across the plaza. And in the middle of it all, a boy, no older than Kai. Standing alone, cloak torn, eyes glowing faintly gold. Time warped around him in pulsing rings. He didn't speak, but Kai heard the echo in his bones. "I didn't mean to rewind everything." Then, darkness. Kai gasped and dropped the disc. Tick flew to his side immediately. "What did you see?" "A version of Stillvale," Kai whispered. "Ruined, broken. And someone like me. But not me." Tick's voice was quieter than he'd ever heard it. That was a memory echo, embedded in the disc. Kai looked at his hands. They were shaking. "Is it possible?" he asked. "Can memories jump between lives?" "If the bond survives," Tick said. "And if it was never closed." Kai sat heavily against the cabinet. "Then maybe I'm not just bonded to time." Tick hovered closer. "Maybe," Kai said slowly, "I am part of it." They left the basement just before dawn. The sun had not yet risen, but the mist had returned, curling around rooftops like sighs. Kai didn't go home. He walked. Through the empty town. Past the silent clock tower. To the river where water moved like breath and light waited beneath the surface. He crouched and touched the water with his fingers. It was cold. It was real. But time was beginning to feel less so. Later that morning, Kai returned to the archive. Mira was waiting by the door, arms crossed. "You opened the cabinet," she said. Kai nodded. "I didn't tell you to," she added. "I think I had to," he replied. She studied him. Then she stepped aside. "Good. Then you're ready for the rest." Kai paused. "There's more?" Mira smirked faintly. "There's always more. Especially with time." The traveler came to the archive just past noon. No announcement. No footsteps. One moment, the sun painted the stone floor with lazy warmth. The next, she stood in the doorway, cloak draped over one shoulder, eyes like ink pressed too hard into paper. Kai looked up from his desk. She said nothing, just watched him. Tick floated beside his ear, unusually still. Then Mira emerged from the back and nodded at the woman. "You're early," Mira said. "I'm expected," the traveler replied. Her voice wasn't cold, but it was quiet, purposeful. Kai stood slowly. "You were at the mayor's hall 2 nights ago." She nodded once. Then her gaze slid to Tick. "And you are bonded to the last recorded time spirit. That's not nothing." Kai tensed slightly. "Who are you?" The woman stepped forward, gloved hands folded neatly in front of her. "Call me Elin." Tick shifted beside Kai. "That name echoes." Elin raised an eyebrow. "It should. I used to walk with a time spirit of my own." Kai blinked. "You're?" I was a carrier of the 13th thread, she said, until it unraveled. They sat across from each other at the long archive table. Mira remained nearby, pretending to sort scrolls but clearly listening. Kai gripped the edge of the table. What does that mean, until it unraveled? Elin folded her hands. Time bonds are unique. Yours especially. Most contracts exist in cycles. Yours stretches, sideways. Kai frowned. Sideways. Tick buzzed faintly. Across timelines. Elin nodded. Exactly. You are not just bonded to a spirit, Kai. You are bonded to its memory, its choices, and, maybe, its regrets. Kai looked down. I've seen visions. Things I don't remember living. They weren't yours, she said softly. But they may become yours. The 13th thread is unstable. It collects echoes. And if enough of them overlap, it breaks. Kai swallowed. What happens if it breaks? Still veil folds, she said. Mira stopped sorting scrolls. Kai blinked. What? Elin leaned forward. This town is a knot, Kai. A weave of spirit bonds wrapped around a hidden rhythm. Your presence here tightens it. Too much weight, and the loop could slip. Kai whispered, so I shouldn't be here. I didn't say that, Elin replied. I said you need to know. Because you are already here. The sun shifted through the window. Kai's thoughts churned quietly, like stones in a slow-moving stream. What do I do? He asked. Elin tapped one gloved finger against the table. You anchor. You listen. You walk slowly. That's all. Until the thread shows you what it's hiding, she said. And then you choose what to do with it. Tick hovered low. She's right. We're not in control. Not fully. But we can steady the rhythm. Elin rose to leave. Kai stood as well. Will I see you again? Only if you drift too far, she said gently. Or if something stronger starts pulling. Then she paused at the door, hand on the frame. One more thing, she said. If the figure returns, the one you saw by the mural, don't follow. Kai stiffened. You saw it too? No, Elin said. But I've seen its shadow in 5 other towns. What is it? Elin looked over her shoulder, her voice barely audible now. A forgotten bond. Still walking. Then she was gone. That night, Kai sat alone in the archive long after Mira left. The pages he had read earlier now felt heavier. He opened the bundle again, flipping through the 13th thread notes. One phrase stood out now, clearer than before. When a contract forgets its name, the world forgets its time. He didn't know what it meant. Not yet. But he was beginning to feel it. Stillvale's days were soft. Repeating. Perfect. And yet, somewhere underneath, something was fraying. Back at the guest house, Kai found a letter waiting for him on the table. Plain paper. Unsealed. Just 5 words written in firm, graceful script. The mural has cracked again. But the mural did not. Kai stood before it just after dawn, breath visible in the chilled air. The wall was old, a faded painting of celestial spirits carved into stone. He'd passed it dozens of times without thinking. But now something felt different. The crack was deeper. It didn't snake. It divided. A clean, sharp line straight through the heart of the painting. Right between 2 of the figures, one holding a star, the other cradling a clock. Tick hovered near Kai's shoulder. This wasn't weather, the spirit said. Kai nodded. I know. Behind him, quiet steps approached. He stopped a few feet away, arms crossed, gaze locked on the fracture. You felt it too? He asked. Kai didn't answer directly. Instead he took a slow breath. The mural used to show 12 spirits, right? Ray nodded. But now there are 13. Ray's eyes narrowed. One of the figures, barely visible beneath faded layers, had been painted in recently. Newer brushwork. A thin outline. No color yet. But it was there. A 13th form, kneeling beneath the others, holding nothing. Kai stepped closer. This wasn't here before. No, Ray agreed. And it's not part of the original legend. Kai reached out. His fingers hovered just above the stone. Then he heard it. Not a sound exactly. A rhythm. Soft, slow. Like a heartbeat muffled by earth. Tick floated lower. This crack, it's not damage. It's a door. Lena joined them an hour later, summoned by a quiet knock on her window and Ray's brief explanation. She arrived with her scarf flung loosely over one shoulder and a half-eaten apple in hand. I thought you were joking, she muttered, staring at the wall. But that's new. Kai pointed to the crack. You see it too? Yes, she said. And that's the part that scares me. What do you mean? I've walked by this mural my whole life, Lena whispered. I know every smudge and faded brushstroke, but I don't remember that figure. And now I do. Like it's always been there. Tick's voice was low. Echo displacement. Kai turned. What is that? When time shifts softly, Tick explained, memories adjust. The world doesn't change. Your recollection does. Lena swallowed. So it's not just the wall that's cracking. Kai touched the stone. The air buzzed faintly beneath his fingers. Something beneath Stillvale was pushing upward, trying to be remembered. They returned later that evening, after dusk, when the streets emptied and the lanterns burned low. Kai brought the silver disc. Ray brought rope and chalk. Lena brought silence. No one spoke as they stood before the mural again. The crack gleamed faintly in the lantern light. Kai placed the disc against the stone. It pulsed once, soft, then sharp. The crack widened. Not like a wound. Like an invitation. A section of the wall shimmered, edges outlined in faint gold. Then it opened. Not loudly. Not magically. Just folded inward. Revealing a narrow passage lined with stone and moss. A hidden corridor beneath Stillvale. Ray readied his chalk. Kai raised the lantern. And Lena whispered, we don't have to go in. Kai looked at her. No, he said. We really do. The air inside was colder. Not from the earth, but from something older. Something waiting. They walked in silence, lantern flickering against damp stone walls. The corridor turned downward in gentle curves, like a spiral slowing toward stillness. Kai's time sense stirred faintly. Not fear. Not warning. But recognition. Tick hovered close. This place remembers you. Kai frowned. I've never been here. But part of you has, the spirit said. Lena stopped. Look. A mark. Carved into the wall near a junction. A spiral with 13 tiny lines beneath it. Ray traced it with his fingers. Someone made this long ago, he said. But the cut's fresh. Kai crouched near it, placing his hand on the stone. Time pulsed through him again. A memory, just out of reach. At the end of the path, the corridor opened into a small chamber. Circular. Smooth. At its center, a stone pedestal with a single book resting atop it. The book was bound in blue leather, clasped shut with a silver latch. No dust. No decay. As if someone had left it there, yesterday. Kai stepped forward. Tick hovered low. Careful. Kai opened the clasp. Inside, blank pages. Dozens of them. Until the very last one. Words had appeared, not written but formed in the parchment itself. You are not the first to walk this path. But you may be the last. If the thread is to hold, it must be remembered. Kai closed the book. Turned to the others. We're not just finding pieces anymore, he said quietly. We're becoming them. Ray didn't argue. Lena looked pale. But neither turned away. They resealed the wall behind them with the silver disc. The mural returned to its quiet watch. But now Kai saw it differently. Not as art. But as memory. A record written in layers only time could read. And time, he realized, had just opened its eyes. The next morning, Stillvale felt unchanged. Children chased leaves in the square. A merchant played a soft flute from his stall. The baker hummed while unloading trays of early apple tarts. But Kai couldn't shake the feeling that he had changed. He sat at his usual desk in the archive, the blue-bound book resting in front of him. Mira hadn't asked where it came from. She only glanced at the cover once, then turned away as if to say, some knowledge walks in on its own. Kai opened it again. The pages remained blank. Except the final one. The text from last night had faded, but new words had appeared, etched lightly into the fibers. One bond echoes. One bond waits. One bond has forgotten. Kai stared at the message, heart quiet. What does it mean? He asked softly. Tick hovered low, wings almost still. I don't know. But it feels like a pattern. Kai nodded. Stillvale had always moved in loops. Rhythm. Routine. But maybe one of those loops had stopped turning. And no one noticed. He spent the afternoon walking. Not wandering, listening. Time's sense hummed faintly in the back of his mind. Not danger. Not memory. Just silence. He passed the lantern keeper's home. The scribe's porch. The chapel door. Then near the far western edge of town, something shifted. Not loudly. Just a flicker of the thread. Tick slowed beside him. Here. It was a house he had seen before. Unremarkable. But as he stepped closer, the time sense grew stronger. Inside he could feel it. A bond. Dormant. Sleeping beneath the rhythm of the house like a stone at the bottom of a river. Kai knocked. A moment passed. Then a voice. Come in. The room smelled of dried herbs and warm tea. An older woman sat by the hearth, knitting something pale blue. She looked up as Kai entered, eyes calm, weathered by years of light. I've seen you around, she said. You're the boy with the spirit. Kai bowed slightly. I'm Kai. She smiled faintly. I'm Marin. This is my home. And my quiet. He hesitated. May I ask you something strange? She didn't flinch. Stranger than a talking pocket watch? Tick beeped softly in protest. Kai smiled. Then sat. There's a bond in this house, he said. A spirit bond. But it's not moving. Marin didn't speak for a long time. Then gently, it's not mine. Kai blinked. You're not bonded? I was, she said. A long time ago. What happened? Her fingers paused mid-knit. He left, she said. The spirit. After my daughter passed. Tick tilted. That shouldn't happen. I thought it was grief, Marin whispered. Or guilt. Or just time. Kai leaned forward. What was the spirit's name? She closed her eyes. Then opened them again. I don't remember. Tick froze. That's not normal, the spirit said. Marin looked at Kai with soft sadness. Sometimes when something hurts long enough, your mind sets it down. And when you go to pick it up again, it's gone. After he left, Kai stood on the path for a long time watching the clouds. A forgotten bond, he said. Tick was silent. She's tied to it. Isn't she? Yes, the spirit finally replied. But not alone. Kai looked back at the house. Not a ruin. Not cursed. Just quiet. Too quiet. A bond had gone to sleep. And part of the thread was still here. That evening he told Lena. They sat beside the river, boots off, feet in the cold water. The sun was slipping low, coloring the reeds in copper. She's not dangerous, Kai said. She's just left behind. Lena nodded slowly. There's a word for that, you know? What? A ghost. Kai frowned. She's not dead. No, Lena said. But maybe the bond is. Kai looked at the ripples around his toes. Then whispered, or maybe it's waiting. Lena leaned her head against his shoulder. You always look so calm, she said. But your thoughts are loud. Kai didn't answer. The water carried their silence gently downstream. That night, Kai opened the blue book again. More words had appeared. The one who forgets must remember. The echo must be named. He stared at the page until the candle burned low. Then he closed it and whispered, I'll find the name. Stillvale's archive wasn't built to keep secrets, but sometimes it did anyway. Kai sat alone beneath the skylight at the back table, the blue-bound book open beside him, a dozen scrolls spread across the wood like fallen leaves. Each one listed spirit bonds by year, carefully recorded in Myra's looping script. He was looking for one name. The name Marin had forgotten. And maybe, the name that had forgotten her. Tick floated low, wings fluttering like anxious thoughts. Even if we find it, the spirit said, she might not remember. I know, Kai replied. He scanned another page. Then another. Time passed without urgency. Stillvale never rushed, even in its mysteries. Halfway through the sixth scroll he found it. Year 1113. Marin of Stillvale. Bond, Spirit of Silence. Name, Hush. Kai read the line 3 times, the name imprinting itself into his chest. Hush, he whispered. And the moment he spoke it, something moved. Not outside. Not even in the room. Inside him. A ripple. Like dust lifting from a shelf that had not been touched in years. Tick stopped ticking. That name, it's active, the spirit said softly. Kai looked at the scroll again. Can spirits survive that long unbonded? No, Tick replied. Not like that. Unless the bond was never broken. He took the scroll to Mira. She was at the front desk, as always, sipping tea and reading a spirit theory text with one eye closed. She didn't look up as he approached. So, she said. You found it. Kai placed the scroll gently on the desk. You knew. I suspected, Mira replied. But names are like seeds. They only grow when someone remembers to water them. Kai frowned. Why didn't you tell her? She asked me not to, Mira said. Back then. Said she wasn't ready. Kai's chest tightened. And now? Maybe, she said. But it has to be her memory. Not mine. Not yours. Kai nodded slowly. He would remind her. But gently. Softly. Like waking someone from a long, deep dream. That evening, Kai returned to Marin's house. She was sitting outside on the small porch watching the sky turn gold, a cup of something warm in her hands. She didn't smile this time. But she didn't look surprised either. "You found it," she said. Kai sat beside her. "Hush." Marin's hands trembled. The cup clinked softly against the saucer. "I haven't heard that name in 15 years. Kai said nothing. Let the wind do the talking. "I used to call him during storms," she said, voice shaking. "He'd sit on the windowsill. Never spoke. Never touched a thing. But I always knew when he was near." Tick hovered silently nearby. "And when my daughter," Marin's voice caught. "He stayed for a while. Then one day he didn't." Kai looked down. "He didn't leave, Marin. He's still here." She turned her head. Eyes wide. "He's been sleeping. Waiting for you to say his name." Marin closed her eyes. Then whispered, "Hush." The air changed. Not loudly. But completely. A faint breeze swept through the porch. And from the shadows beneath the steps, a shape emerged. Small. Humanoid. Cloaked in silence. Not dramatic. Not glowing. Just there. Two soft eyes blinked up at her. Marin covered her mouth. Then reached forward with shaking hands. "You stayed." The spirit didn't answer. It didn't need to. Marin wept. And the bond, long dormant, stirred. Later, Kai sat by the river, the name still echoing in his chest. Tick floated beside him, quiet. "She remembered," Kai said. "She was ready to," Tick replied. Kai closed his eyes. Stillvale had always moved gently. But even quiet places held stories too heavy for the wind to carry. He had helped wake one. And in the silence that followed, he felt something settle. Like part of the 13th thread had just been mended. Back at the guest house, the blue book waited. New words had appeared. The name has been spoken. The thread has turned. "To remain." The blue book did not lie. "To remain." Kai read the words again the next morning as light filtered through the guest house window, painting the page in gold. Two forgotten bonds. One of them had been Marin's. The other? He wasn't sure anymore if it was a stranger. Or himself. He walked through Stillvale slowly that morning, head down, hands deep in his sleeves. The town was quiet, content in its rhythm. But Kai moved through it like a shadow cast slightly out of sync. Tick floated beside him, unusually still. "Do you remember anything before we bonded?" Kai asked quietly. Tick was silent for a few beats. Then, "I remember watching you. Before." Kai blinked. "Before I arrived here?" "No," Tick said. "Before you arrived there." He stopped walking. Turned slowly to face the spirit. "What do you mean?" Tick's wings clicked gently. "I was watching you long before you died in Tokyo." Kai's breath caught in his chest. "You knew me?" "I was bound to you. Once." The street around them blurred. Not physically. Emotionally. As if time had blinked and left only the space behind. "I don't remember," Kai whispered. "I know," Tick said softly. "That's the bond you forgot." They returned to the riverside. The place where he and Lena always sat. It was empty now. The water moved quietly, unaware. Kai sat on the same rock he'd always chosen. But the world around him had changed shape. "How long ago?" he asked. Tick hovered above the water, wings unmoving. "You were very young," the spirit said. "Not here. Not on the blue planet. But somewhere else. Another rhythm. Another name." Kai pressed a hand to his chest. "Was I someone else?" "No," Tick replied. "But you were not this. Not yet." Kai looked out at the water. His voice was small. "Did I die?" "You did," Tick said. "But not completely. Your soul slipped forward. Found the right beat. And you followed?" "I waited," the spirit said. "I waited a long time for your rhythm to return." Kai stared at the river. At the wind curling over the surface. He had always wondered why he didn't feel new here. Why the blue planet felt like something remembered. And now, he understood. He had been here before. Not in body, but in bond. That evening he returned to the mural. The crack had not grown. But the 13th figure was now clearer, its outline darker, its shape more defined. Still kneeling. Still waiting. Ray arrived without being called. He stood beside Kai, silent as ever. "You knew, didn't you?" Kai asked. Ray didn't respond. But he nodded once. Kai turned toward him. "How?" "I've seen it before," Ray said. "In Stonegrove. Another mural. Same shape. Same crack." Kai's eyes widened. "The 13th thread?" Ray looked at him carefully. "A traveler once told me it wasn't a myth. She said it walks with people who don't remember being walked with. Kai's voice was low. Elin. Ray nodded. She said it finds the forgotten. Kai turned back to the wall. I think it found me. Later, at the archive, Kai sat with the blue book open again. No new text. But the page still pulsed with quiet weight. 2 remain. He dipped a quill in ink. And on the bottom of the page he wrote, 1 is mine. The ink shimmered faintly. Then, slowly, letters began to form beneath it. Then the thread has turned twice. 1 remains. Kai sat back. The world around him suddenly felt heavier. But not in a painful way. In a final way. Like walking toward the last page of a chapter that had written itself for years. The next morning, Lena found him at the edge of the orchard, sitting beneath a tree whose leaves had just started turning red. She didn't speak right away. She just sat beside him, watching the wind pass through the branches. You're different lately, she said after a while. Kai nodded. I remembered something. About before. She looked at him gently. Does it change anything? I think it explains everything. Are you okay? Kai looked at her. At the way her scarf shifted in the breeze. At the way her eyes didn't flinch. And he said, I don't know. But I'm ready. Lena smiled. And the leaves began to fall. Stillvale's rhythm held. But Kai could feel the pauses growing longer. Little hesitations between the bell chimes. Extra breaths before the wind turned. The river flowed as always, but its voice had grown quieter. As if the town was waiting for something it couldn't name. In the archive, the blue-bound book sat closed. Not because it had nothing more to say, but because Kai no longer needed it to speak first. We need to find the last bond, Kai said. Tick bobbed beside him, wings dimmed in thought. We don't have a name. No location. No lead. Then we look where the silence is deepest, Kai replied. So they began. Not in the plaza or the paths, but in the corners. The edges of Stillvale. The places where time hesitated. The first stop was the bell tower. Kai hadn't been up there since his first week. The wooden stairs groaned under his boots as he climbed. Dust stirred with each footfall, but not like it had been forgotten. More like it had been left alone on purpose. At the top, the bell sat suspended, unmoving, ropes frayed from years of neglect. Beyond it, the view stretched across the rooftops, gold-tipped trees curling smoke, the gentle river winding past the fields. And below, the mural wall. Kai stared at it for a long time. Then he turned. There, etched into one of the old beams above the bell. A mark. A spiral. With a single word beneath it. Soon. Ray met him outside the smith's quarter. Kai showed him a rubbing of the mark. Ray didn't flinch. I've seen it in 2 other places, he said. In the hills. And in the hollow tree near the training grounds. Kai folded the paper. Someone's marking time. Or tracking it, Ray said. That evening Kai returned to Mira. He handed her the rubbing. She traced the spiral with 1 finger. That's not a symbol, she murmured. It's a countdown. Kai's breath caught. To what? Mira didn't answer. Not directly. Instead, she reached into a drawer and pulled out a folded piece of paper. On it, 12 spirals. Each one with a number beside it. 12, found. 13, broken. 14, sealed. 15, waiting. 16, forgotten. 17, remembered. 18, soon. Kai stared. These are the threats, he whispered. Mira nodded. The last is always the hardest to find. Because it doesn't move? No, she said. Because it watches. That night, Kai walked alone. Not through Stillvale, but outside it. Past the orchard. Beyond the northern trees. Into the shadow of the hills. The air there was colder. Older. Even Tick said nothing. Then, time sense. A flicker. A pulse in his ribs. Kai stopped. Before him stood an old stone marker. Covered in moss. Barely taller than his waist. No writing. Just a crack running through the center. He stepped closer. And heard it. A breath. Not air. Not wind. A presence. Tick hovered low. It's here. Kai knelt and placed his hand against the stone. I know you're watching, he whispered. No answer. But the silence shifted. Not fear. Not danger. Just awareness. You're the last one, Kai said. The final forgotten bond. Still no voice. Just the weight of time. Then, softly as if from beneath the soil. I remember you. Kai didn't sleep that night. He sat by the river, watching the moon slide behind clouds, hands clasped together. Tick hovered close. What did it mean? Kai asked. That it's not just waiting, Tick said. It's choosing. Me. Tick paused. No, not yet. Kai nodded slowly. His eyes burned. He didn't know why, but something about the voice. It had sounded familiar. Not as memory, but as possibility. The next morning, the blue book held no words. Just a line drawn across the last page. A single spiral. And the number? 1. The ground beneath Stillvale had always felt steady. But now it hummed. Not in tremors. In memory. Kai stood once again before the cracked stone in the northern woods. The moss had receded. The spiral had deepened. The air was thicker here, like pages too full to write on. Tick hovered silently at his side. You heard it, the spirit said. Kai nodded. I remember you. That voice hadn't been angry. Or urgent. But it had been alive. Not just watching. Waiting. And now, it had spoken. That morning, the blue book had changed again. Only 2 words had appeared. Come alone. So he had. Ray had offered to join him. Lena too. But Kai had shaken his head. I think this is something I have to meet on my own, he'd said. Neither of them argued. Stillvale had learned to trust silence. And Kai was becoming fluent in its dialect. He placed his hand on the stone again. The world tilted. Not violently. But definitely. The trees fell away, the ground fell through him, and the sky unraveled like a painting dipped in water. And then, he stood beneath Stillvale. Not a cave. Not a ruin. But a place made of time. Stone folded in loops. Roots twisted into spirals. Light pulsed through the air like breath. In the center, a thread. Not string. Not rope. A living spiral of light, slowly rotating, anchored to a pedestal of carved memory. Kai stepped forward. Each footfall felt like walking across pages. Tick hovered close. This is the center. The end? Kai asked. The beginning that loops, Tick replied. As Kai reached the thread, it pulsed once, bright and warm. Then the air shifted. A figure emerged. No face. No form. Just a silhouette of faint light and quiet rhythm. The voice spoke, not aloud but into Kai's existence. I was your echo. And now you are mine. Kai felt it instantly. This was the last bond. The one that had not broken. Because it had never formed fully. He was not just remembering it. He was becoming it. The thread floated toward him. It circled his wrist, his chest, his heart. Not binding him. Asking. Tick pulsed at his side. It's offering. Kai whispered, what happens if I accept? You complete the 13th thread, Tick said. And, you vanish. Kai's breath caught. Vanish. Not die, the spirit said gently. But return to the thread. Fully. You become memory. Kai stared at the spiral of light. His fingers trembled. I'm not ready to disappear. You don't have to, Tick said. But it's part of me, Kai whispered. Isn't it? It always was. The figure hovered. Waiting. Kai closed his eyes. He thought of Lena's laugh. Of Ray's quiet nods. Of Myra's sharp voice. Of Marin holding the spirit she once forgot. He thought of the apple bread. The breeze on the river. The chimes from the bell tower. And he said, no. The thread paused. I'm not finished here, Kai said. I may be part of you. But I'm also me. Then let the memory wait. Let the thread hold open. The spiral pulsed once more. Then, it receded. Not broken. Just, resting. Tick floated close, voice soft. You chose now. Kai smiled. I want to walk more. When he returned to the surface, the stone was whole. The crack sealed. The moss fresh. The spiral faint again. Not erased. Just waiting. That evening he returned to the riverbank. Lena and Ray were already there watching the water. You found it, Ray said. Kai nodded. You left it, Lena said. He nodded again. I'm glad, she whispered. He sat beside them. The wind turned the leaves. The river sang low. Stillvale breathed in rhythm again. And Kai, for the first time in his remembered life, felt completely here. Back in the archive, the blue book rested quietly. Its last message had changed once more. The thread has turned. But it does not close. It waits. Kai closed the cover. Stepped outside. And let the moment pass. Not quickly. Not slowly. Just fully.